The Transfiguration of Jesus Christ. The Transfiguration is a feast celebrated on August the 6th. It is mentioned in Matthew 17:1-9, Mark 9:1-6, and Luke 9:28-36. And after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John his brother, and led them up a high mountain apart, and he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his garments became white as light. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. And Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is well that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 booths here, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. He was still speaking when lo, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell on their faces, and they were filled with awe. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, Rise and have no fear. And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus only. And as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus commanded them, Tell no one the vision until the Son of Man is raised from the dead. So this happens after 6 days. Jesus takes the 3 apostles, Peter, James, and John, to Mount Tabor, or at least that's the mountain that we think he was on. He prays there, and while he's praying, the 3 apostles fall asleep. When they wake up, they find that Jesus was not alone. He was with Moses and Elijah. Peter says that he could build booths for Jesus and Moses and Elijah. However, as he speaks, or before he finishes his words, a cloud of light comes down from the sky, and a voice comes from the cloud saying, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. This is the voice of God the Father. The 3 apostles were struck by awe and fear, as kind of shown in the icon. They fall on their faces, but Jesus touches them and tells them not be afraid. He tells them to keep the vision of what they have seen a secret until the Son of Man is raised from the dead. Now, there are several things to take from this. For instance, the fact that the Transfiguration occurred on the 7th day kind of resonates with the creation of the world. It is also similar to the story of Moses on Mount Sinai, where he spoke to God, or God spoke to him on the 7th day. And it is in the book of Exodus where Moses went to Mount Sinai on the 7th day. There are several similarities here between the Transfiguration and the story of Moses on Mount Sinai. For example, they both happen on a mountain peak. And the vision of God, or the voice of God, is heard and felt and seen. Additionally, Moses took with him 3 people: Aaron, Nodab, and Abihu. Jesus takes with him Peter, John, James, and John. James and John are brothers, just like Nadab and Abihu. A final similarity that I'll go through is the shining which happens on Moses' face after he has spoken to God or has seen God, and how Jesus shines. However, Jesus completely shines because of the fact of his divine nature. This reflects the glory of God that Moses encountered and Jesus shone as well. However, it is Jesus' own light that shines. That's why he becomes entirely bright. There are plenty of icons on the Transfiguration that show Mount Sinai and Mount Horeb on the sides where Moses and Elijah are, respectively. Moses on the left side with Mount on top of Mount Sinai, and Elijah on the right side with Mount on top of Mount Horeb. The presence of God in the three occasions tells us a lot, but what exactly does it tell us? Well, both Moses and Elijah were speaking to God during the vision or the event of the Transfiguration. Jesus or God's voice is also heard from the cloud, and the three of them are on mountain peaks. The appearance of Moses and Elijah before the apostles kind of takes us to the idea of sacred time and sacred space, which I will dive into shortly. Additionally, the appearance of Moses and Elijah hints at the closing chapter. It kind of points out that Jesus is the new Moses, but greater because he is the Son of God. Now, for sacred time and space, I have delved into that previously. Time and space are not pure forms. They exist objectively. What sacred time is basically eternal time, a time where nothing ends, but is rather fulfilled. How iconographers incorporate sacred time in divine images is usually through the event and the figures that are shown in the event, even though they might not have been there. However, in this particular event, they don't really need to add anything because it's already there, because Moses and Elijah, who weren't alive at that time, are shown through the vision for the apostles. Additionally, the idea of sacred space, which is usually shown in this particular icon, except for the one that I'm working on right now, they usually draw the mountain peaks and the Mount Sinai and Mount Horeb. This is not shown here, but it still presents the idea of sacred space. In other icons, this is usually shown through the building of the church, for example, or the different ratios of the buildings and how the perspective is kind of different. Again, this is not shown here, but the idea is very present. Speaking of the sacred, divine energies are shown in this particular image with the rays of light that come out of Jesus and during the Transfiguration, shining over the three apostles and on Moses and Elijah as well. So what is written in the icon? At the very top, it says Metamorphia, or the Transfiguration in Greek. And below that, ICXC, which is the abbreviation of Jesus Christ. The movement of the figures in the icon is also quite visible, even though it is already kind of there. For example, Jesus is holding his finger, motioning to the ICXC motion, or Jesus Christ. Moses and Elijah are extending their hands as if they're bowing as if they're kind of praying to Jesus. And the three apostles are struck in fear and awe. They're shown lying on their faces or holding themselves, curling up. And finally, the colors. Of course, the overwhelming color of the original icon is the gold, which kind of shows the divine energies of God. The rays of light that are coming out or coming through Jesus are yellowish, but I think this is due to the age. I think they were intended to be white, which I have presented them as white through my painting. I opted to use white to define it further. Moses is wearing greenish brown robes, and the color green is usually a sign of hope. And the overwhelming blue in most of the figures are wearing signifies them glimpsing upon the kingdom of God. And Jesus is usually depicted wearing white or lighter shades of blue because of the transfiguration, because he turns brighter and he shines in that moment. Hence why I opted to use a very light shade of blue along with a lot of white and gold. The icon itself is from the St. Catherine Monastery in Sinai, Egypt. It was painted between 1080 to 1200 AD. I've chosen this icon specifically from the St. Catherine Monastery because I come from Egypt and I have visited St. Catherine and I've seen some of the amazing art in there. I've also decided to paint it and not sign it. I will sign it on the back, however, just like iconographers would back then. And that's my presentation. Thank you.